Bankrupt and desperate, I became my alpha rival's possession. He humiliated me in front of others, and behind closed doors, he was even worse than a beast. I'm an alpha, but he treated me like an omega, toying with me however he pleased. One day, I opened the door to the basement and was shocked to see the walls covered in photos of me. Terrified, I ran away. But when I opened my eyes again, I was chained to the bed of my mortal enemy. They say rock bottom doesn't send you a warning. One day you're eating brunch in your penthouse with your mom, and the next you're dodging loan sharks in the alley behind your crumbling apartment building. My father disappeared with everything. Our money, our cars, our pride. Left a note that said sorry, like that could pay off the people banging on our door at midnight. My mother cried herself sick for weeks. And me? I swallowed my pride, knocked on doors, begged for scraps, and when that wasn't enough, I started borrowing. So when I got the invite to Nolan's game night, I knew it was a trap. I knew the smirk behind that fancy gold embossed card. But I still put on my nicest shirt and walked in with my head high and stomach hollow. I needed money, even if it meant playing court jester for the man I hated most in this world. The private room was dimly lit, full of laughter, expensive perfume, and the clinking of crystal glasses. I was late, traffic jam from hell. And in this toxic circle of rich heirs and social games, being late meant one thing: punishment. "I'll drink 3 cups," I said, not bothering with pleasantries. I saw him then, Nolan. Leaning back like a prince on a velvet sofa, long legs crossed, one arm draped over the omega he had stolen from me a month ago. His expression was wicked, peach blossom eyes lazily half-lidded as he raised his glass. "Hey," he said, stopping me with a hand on the rim of the cup. "It's so boring to just drink. Why don't we try something else?" I smiled, sharp and brittle. "Sure, as long as it makes you happy." "Oh, it will," Nolan purred, lips curling. "You like the way the little omegas feed people wine, don't you? Tonight, you can try being one of them. Feed me a drink." The room went dead silent. No one dared to breathe. Everyone knew we were enemies. Everyone knew this wasn't a game. It was a performance. A power play. My jaw clenched, but I kept the smile on. Fine. I picked up the small crystal glass between my lips and stepped forward. Then, with a grace I didn't know I had left, I knelt on one knee between his legs. The humiliation burned, but I swallowed it whole. Nolan reclined, one hand casually brushing his omega's arm aside. He was watching me like a predator with a toy. His gaze flicked to the glass between my lips. I leaned in, our faces so close I could feel the warmth of his breath. But he didn't drink. He just looked at me, eyes narrowed. A challenge. "Fine, you want to play?" I grabbed his tie and yanked him forward slightly. His hand shot out, hot and strong, wrapping around my waist. I froze. He leaned in slowly, lips brushing the rim of the glass, eyes never leaving mine. "Don't shake," he whispered. I glared, but before I could respond, he bit the rim of the glass, his hand sliding up the back of my neck, guiding me down. And as the wine slipped from the glass into his mouth, his tongue flicked out and brushed against my lips. I went stiff. That didn't happen. No, that didn't just happen. My jaw slackened. The glass slipped. Wine spilled, splashing over his chest. Nolan exhaled slowly, tongue dragging along his bottom lip as he looked down at the mess. "Oh no," he said, voice dark with amusement. "How should I punish you now?" My mind was spinning, my heart pounding too loud. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't about humiliation anymore. This was something worse. The wine still clung to Nolan's shirt like a red stain of my shame, but he didn't seem to care. Instead, he flicked his wrist with that lazy arrogance only someone like him could perfect, brushing off the omega beside him like tossing away a crumpled napkin. "I'll trouble you to stay with me tonight," he said with a smile so cold it burned. The others didn't react, but I could feel it. That silence thick with hidden smirks and sympathy that wasn't real. Everyone in this room knew what Nolan was doing. This wasn't generosity. This was public execution in the form of casual dominance. And like a good little pawn, I sat down beside him, dazed and still tasting the warmth of his lips. His arms slid around my waist without hesitation. His grip firm, fingers long, confident like he had every right to touch me. My spine stiffened, but I didn't push him away. I couldn't afford to. Then he leaned in, breath brushing my ear, voice dipped in a purr. "Your waist is quite thin." My breath caught. Thin waist? Thin waist? What the hell does that even mean? Was he teasing me like I was some delicate omega? I'm an alpha, just like him. just as strong, just as capable. Maybe even more if life hadn't thrown me into the mud and left me there. I clenched my jaw and said nothing. The whole thing felt like a dream I couldn't wake up from. Halfway through the night, I escaped to the bathroom, finally free of his claws for 5 blessed minutes. I stood at the sink, splashing cold water on my face, trying to wash off the heat of his touch, his words, the humiliation that clung to my skin. Then I looked up, and there he was, behind me, like a ghost, reflected in the mirror, standing so still and confident with his hands in his pockets, and that same amused glint in his peach blossom eyes. We've been enemies since we were kids. He stole the car I was eyeing at the dealership. He dated the people I liked just to watch me get mad. Whenever I reached for something, he reached faster, harder, and smiled while doing it. And now he was after me. His gaze dragged lazily down my body. "Not only do you have a thin waist," he said softly, "you also have nice legs." I turned around slowly, my anger drained into tired confusion. "Nolan," I muttered, "just tell me, what do you even want from me?" He stepped forward, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his body in the cool air. I didn't back away. I couldn't. He reached into his coat and pulled out a sleek black card, holding it up like an offering. Then, with maddening carelessness, he used it to lift my chin. His eyes locked onto mine, the smile on his lips wicked. "Be my dog." I froze. No words came. Just the sound of my heart in my ears and the shame boiling in my chest. My pride screamed at me to walk away. Punch him. But my pride didn't pay rent. Pride didn't keep my mother safe or feed her. My fingers twitched. I looked at the card and thought of home. "Fine," I choked out, voice barely more than a breath. Nolan slipped the black card into my coat pocket with a victorious little hum. Then suddenly, he grabbed my hand. Before I could flinch, he pumped a dollop of hand sanitizer into my palm. His fingers stayed curled around mine, holding my hand like it was something fragile and important. "What are you doing?" I asked, stunned. He leaned in again, his chin resting lightly on my shoulder, voice low and sinful. "What? Can't I wash my dog's paws?" My stomach turned. I should have snapped. I should have said something. Anything. But the money was already in my pocket. And with it came chains. Nolan's fingers moved, slow and deliberate, massaging the sanitizer between my fingers, his hand gliding over mine in motions too smooth, too intimate, slippery and warm and invasive. Our hands moved together, tangled in a rhythm I didn't understand, couldn't stop. The scent of citrus and alcohol filled the air, mixing with the heat of his body against mine. My skin prickled, my pulse screamed. Every hair on my body stood on edge. Nolan is absolutely toxic. That night, Nolan brought me to his home. It was my first time stepping into the lair of my sworn enemy. I thought it would be some cold, showy bachelor pad, but it was spotless, stylish, and irritatingly perfect. Modern decor, soft lighting, sleek black marble floors, and not a single trace of mess. Even the faint scent of cedarwood annoyed me. Why did this man have to be so perfect at everything? He tossed me a towel and told me to shower in the first-floor bathroom. I didn't argue. I smelled like wine and shame. After I scrubbed myself clean and stepped out, my body still warm from the steam, I spotted something sitting neatly on the shelf beside the pajamas. A brown leather collar. With a bell. I froze. My eye twitched. This was not happening. I stormed out, hair dripping, collar in hand, and slammed it on the table in front of Nolan. What the hell is this supposed to mean? He didn't even flinch. He just leaned back on the couch, legs lazily crossed, sipping a glass of red wine like some smug villain out of a drama. "Why haven't you worn it yet?" he said calmly, lifting the collar and making the little bell jingle. "I'm not wearing that," I said through gritted teeth, grabbing his wrist before he could reach for me. Nolan's eyes narrowed, smile deepening. "You must wear it every time you come to see me. That's the rule." "What?" He tilted his head. "Of course you can refuse," he said, placing the collar in my hand. I stood there, fists clenched. My pride screamed at me to throw the damn thing back in his face, but then my mother's exhausted face flashed through my mind. The apartment rent, the debts, the phone calls in the middle of the night. I'd promised myself I'd endure anything if it meant getting her out of that hell. "Forget it. Dignity is worthless," I muttered under my breath. I turned my face away and let him put it on me. The leather felt cool against my neck. Nolan's fingers brushed my skin far too slowly, adjusting the buckle like he was enjoying it. When he was done, the bell gave a soft chime that echoed louder than it should have. I glared at him. I guess you're having a lot of fun, Nolan. He toyed with the bell. What did you call me? That's not the right tone, is it? His voice dropped an octave, mockingly sweet. My face turned crimson. If you promise to be my dog, you should act like a dog, he said. I felt my nails dig into my palms. Endure it. Just endure it. Master. The word came out barely above a whisper. God, this was shameful. Nolan was a damn lunatic. No wonder he could steal away all the Omegas I ever liked. He probably scared them into submission with this kind of insanity. But that black card in my pocket, it was real. And it changed everything. With it, I rented a new apartment for my mother. A high-end one, the kind with security guards at every entrance and fingerprint locks. Deliverymen couldn't even get past the lobby. It was a fortress, just what we needed to keep the debt collectors away. My mother's face had changed over the past few months. She used to be so elegant and composed. Now she looked fragile, like she might collapse if someone breathed on her too hard. She squeezed my hand with a faint smile. Baby, you've worked hard. Just wait a little longer, okay? Your dad will come back soon. He'll fix everything. I didn't have the heart to tell her the truth, that we hadn't heard from him in over a month, that he probably wasn't coming back at all. Let's eat first, I said, avoiding her eyes. Then you can rest. But when we walked into the kitchen, the two of us just stared at the stove. Neither of us knew how to cook. Not really. Not even enough to turn on the gas. I'll order something, I offered, already reaching for my phone. And then, the doorbell rang. My entire body froze. We weren't expecting anyone. Mom glanced at me, confused. Did you order something already? I shook my head slowly. No. My heart pounded. Please don't let it be a debt collector. Not here. I stepped toward the door cautiously, peering through the peephole. It was Nolan, holding 2 grocery bags in one hand and wearing an apron slung over one shoulder. He smiled straight at the camera like he knew I was watching. No way. This man was truly impossible. I opened the door and stared at him, stunned. My chest tightened. What are you doing here? Oh, I see. You're here to embarrass me. I bit my lip, pride withering away. I lowered my voice, desperate. My mother is here now. I'll go to your place tonight. You can humiliate me however you want, but please, not here. For a second, Nolan's eyes flickered. I couldn't tell what emotion passed through them, but it wasn't his usual mockery. I'm here to see Auntie, he said plainly. Then, in typical Nolan fashion, he smirked. But it's not impossible for you to come to my place tonight. I almost slammed the door on his face. I didn't want to do that even if I died. Not only did I have to wear a bell and dangle it in front of him, I wasn't even allowed to put on clothes. This guy, honestly. He strolled in like he owned the place, stepping over my boundaries and into my kitchen like it was some regular Tuesday. I watched helplessly as he made his way toward my mom with a confident smile. Hello, Auntie. I'm James's friend. My mother blinked and turned to me, a curious look on her face, silently asking for confirmation. Before I could open my mouth, Nolan beat me to it. Just call me Nolan. I heard from James that you moved, so I came to visit. You haven't had dinner yet, right? No worries, I brought groceries. I'll make something delicious for you. My mother lit up like a chandelier. Oh, that's very sweet of you, she said, smiling like he'd just handed her a bar of gold. I stood there, speechless. I couldn't say anything in front of her, so I grabbed his sleeve and dragged him into the kitchen. Once we were alone, I hissed under my breath. What on earth are you doing here? You can't seriously be here to warm my house. Nolan leaned against the counter, completely unfazed. If I didn't come, were you going to feed Auntie with takeout? I frowned. Guilty. We just moved in. We haven't had time to hire a nanny yet. He looked at me for a moment, like he could see right through my excuses. Then, without another word, he rolled up his sleeves and got to work. To my shock, Nolan didn't just know how to cook. He was good. Like, absurdly good. The aromas filled the kitchen so quickly I had to lean against the wall just to stay grounded. My stomach, the traitor, growled loudly enough for him to hear. He didn't comment, but the corners of his lips curled. Dinner was absurdly perfect. Fragrant soup, stir-fried vegetables, braised chicken, and even some handmade tofu he somehow whipped up in minutes. My mother was glowing, happily chatting and praising him like he was her long-lost son-in-law. I tried not to eat too much, but I couldn't help it. 2 bowls of rice disappeared before I knew it. Nolan leaned back after dinner, sipping tea, and looked at me. Really looked at me. His peach blossom eyes narrowed slightly, full of mischief and something unreadable. I felt a chill run down my spine. "What?" I asked, defensive. He smiled lazily. "Didn't think you'd eat so well at your master's table." "Don't start," I growled, face burning. I didn't even realize when the wind outside had grown so fierce. One moment it was just cloudy, and the next, the whole world was roaring. Thunder cracked, lightning danced behind the curtains, and the rain came down in sheets thick enough to blur the streetlights. Of course. Of all nights, it had to be this one. Nolan stood by the window like he wasn't fazed in the slightest. "Guess I won't be going home tonight." I pinched the bridge of my nose. Figures. My apartment wasn't built for guests, just a small 2-bedroom box stacked between other boxes. And since the other room was still filled with unopened moving boxes, that left only one bed. One bed. With him. I eyed him as he dropped lazily onto the mattress, arms behind his head, smug like this was his home. Both of us were alphas, yes, but I'd seen Nolan's unhinged side. I didn't trust him for a second. So I curled up stiffly at the farthest edge of the bed, fully clothed, one eye open, ready to kick him in the face if needed. But sometime in the dead of night, everything changed. A fevered heat coiled around my back, and when I opened my eyes, I was in Nolan's arms. His chest was searing hot, his arm locked tight around my waist, and his breath was fanning across the nape of my neck, each exhale grazing dangerously close to my gland. I jolted, panic crawling up my spine. "Nolan, why are you so hot?" He didn't even flinch. Instead, he buried his face deeper against me, lips brushing the skin just above my gland. "Maybe it's the susceptible period," he murmured. My blood ran cold. "What?" I twisted around to glare at him. "You knew you were close to your heat and still came to my house?" He didn't answer. Instead, he nuzzled against my neck again and whispered with a voice low and aching, "James, you smell so good." "Don't!" I tried to move, but my body betrayed me. A sudden tremble coursed through me, my voice faltering as his nose grazed the sensitive spot again and again. And then, there it was. A soft, warm pressure, barely there at first, but quickly turning wet and deliberate. He was sucking on my gland. My back arched on instinct, the fire licking along every nerve ending as I gasped for air. I clenched my jaw, fighting the heat, the way it pulsed at the base of my spine, the way I felt like I was being dragged into something I couldn't stop. Suppressants. I reached desperately for the drawer beside the bed, fingers stretching, shaking. Suppressants. Nolan. Just hold on. I have them. But before I could reach them, Nolan yanked my hand back and pinned it against the mattress. His grip was firm, not painful, but possessive. That was the last straw. "Nolan," I shouted, "open your damn dog eyes and look at me. I'm not an Omega." He chuckled. The sound slithered under my skin. "You can still laugh." I snapped, half mad with anger, half dizzy from the heat still simmering under my skin. I turned sharply and kicked him off. He didn't resist. Just rolled with it, letting me go. Face burning, I scrambled out of bed and marched toward the door, hoping the cold air from the hallway would slap some sense back into me. I grabbed the handle and threw it open. But before I could step out, something strong and scalding wrapped around my waist again. Bang! I was slammed against the door, back hitting the panel as Nolan caged me in from behind. His voice came just above my ear, husky and strained. "Just let me smell it for a little while." My breath caught. That voice, so low and rough, it didn't match his usual teasing arrogance. It was almost pleading. But what did he mean? I'm not an Omega. So why the hell was he acting like I was? He pressed in closer, inhaling deeply like he was addicted, his chest rising and falling fast against my back. Was this some sick game? A way to humiliate me? Rage surged in my veins. "Don't screw with me, Nolan. You know I'm an alpha, so why are you sniffing me like some obsessed mutt?" He didn't reply. He just stayed there, breathing me in like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning. I didn't want to admit it, but I was scared. Scared of him. Scared of what he might do next. I didn't even hear her approach. My mother's soft knock on the door sliced through the thick heat between us like a knife. "What's going on in there?" Before I could even breathe, Nolan leaned in, his hot breath brushing my cheek, and bit the tip of my ear. A quiet, wicked chuckle followed, his chest vibrating behind me. I froze. My ears burned and my whole body stiffened. I could feel the damn smirk on his face, and I wanted to punch it. I pressed my forehead to the door, voice tight. "It's okay, Mom. Just a bug flew in. Go back to sleep." "Be careful then," she murmured, the sound of her footsteps slowly retreating down the hall. I barely had time to exhale before pain shot through the back of my neck. My eyes widened. He didn't. He wouldn't. But he did. That bastard bit my gland. Nolan marked me. For a moment, everything inside me went still. Then it hit, his pheromones, flooding my system like a poison I didn't ask for. The rejection came hard and fast. My body shook uncontrollably, my skin crawling, the heat turning to fury and nausea all at once. I wasn't an Omega. I wasn't supposed to be marked. What the hell kind of sick joke was this? Nolan turned me around like I was made of string and tried to kiss me. His lips were close, his eyes locked on mine, and then he paused. He looked stunned. "You," he murmured, his voice quieter now, guilt creeping into his features. His grip loosened, and he let go. It was only then I realized I was crying. Tears slid down my face, hot and uninvited. I didn't even know when they'd started. My sleeve moved automatically to wipe them, but that wasn't enough. I launched myself at him, fists flailing. "You lunatic! I'm going to kill you!" The door slammed open, and there was Mom, standing in the doorway, mouth agape. And there I was, straddling Nolan, biting his neck like a feral animal. It was chaos after that. We were both rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. Nolan got a high-dose inhibitor shot. He was fine. I, on the other hand, was not. My body rejected the mark violently. The doctors had to sedate me, and I was quarantined until my system stabilized. When I was finally discharged, I did what any self-respecting victim of unwanted marking would do. I took Nolan's black card and spent like hell. Expensive takeout, designer clothes, a new gaming console, hell, even overpriced scented candles. I cursed him every time my noodles came without chopsticks, and especially when the cold water gave me brain freeze. He deserved it. And yet, when he called that night, asking me to attend a charity dinner with him, I still went. The money was too good to pass up. I wore a sleek black suit, tried not to look like I was plotting his demise, and followed him into a glittering hall filled with polished marble and fake laughter. The moment we stepped inside, the sharks circled. Uncles and aunties from the business world surrounded Nolan, their voices syrupy sweet. I hated how natural he was in this environment. Hated even more how good he looked in that fitted suit. And when they looked at me in surprise, some whispering, some outright gawking, Nolan didn't say a word. He didn't explain. He just kept me close, a hand on my waist, our bodies practically glued together. The message was clear. I'm with him now. It was subtle, elegant, powerful, and infuriating. Because despite everything, despite the chaos, the anger, and the humiliation, Nolan was protecting me, letting them know that I had his backing now, debts or not. I didn't know what his angle was. Maybe he still wanted me to be his pet, his possession. A few glasses of wine and you're already drunk. I muttered as I half-dragged, half-carried Nolan into the backseat of the car. He flopped against me with all the grace of a rag doll, his face buried against my shoulder like I was some kind of comfort pillow. I clicked my tongue and rolled down the window, letting the night breeze cool my face. And my patience. When I looked down again, I was momentarily stunned. His ridiculously handsome face was so close I could count the fluttering lashes resting on his cheeks. That annoyingly perfect nose, those sharp features. Seeing an alpha who's better looking than me should be illegal. I pushed away the petty thought. Suddenly, he grabbed my hand. His eyes opened slightly, glazed but intense, like two dark pools threatening to drown me. My throat went dry. "You," I started, trying to pull my hand back. Then, wham. He grabbed the back of my head and kissed me. It wasn't gentle. It was hot, desperate, and drunk. "Open your mouth," he muttered hoarsely against my lips. "Open your—" Panicked, I headbutted him. Hard. He slumped over with a grunt and passed out cold on my lap. I stared at his unconscious body for a moment, my lips still tingling. Then I let out a slow exhale and smirked. "You dare act crazy with me when you're drunk?" I scoffed, shoving his face to the side. Later, back at the villa, I dumped him on the bed like a sack of potatoes. For once, the great and mighty Nolan was at my mercy. Oh, I was going to enjoy this. I opened a drawer and pulled out a velvet collar with a little silver bell. I gave it a shake, and it jingled softly. Didn't expect this day would come, huh? I said, chuckling darkly. Let's see how you like being the one humiliated for once. With exaggerated care, I snapped the collar around his neck. He didn't move an inch. Perfect. I snapped dozens of pictures, holding back laughter the entire time. Ah, finally justice! Just as I grinned wide enough to split my face in two, jingle. Nolan sat up like something out of a horror film. I yelped and dropped my phone. My heart was about to punch a hole through my chest. I looked at him, grinning nervously. It's all a misunderstanding, okay? He blinked at me, eyes still hazy. I want to take a shower. Huh? He got off the bed, stripped in 3 seconds flat, and walked into the bathroom like I didn't just turn him into my personal meme collection. I let out a long, shaky breath. He's still drunk, thank God. But just as I started to relax, I heard the water running. Then, James. I peeked in and froze. Nolan was sitting in the bathtub, completely bare, some arms draped over the sides like a lazy king. Come bathe me. I stared at Nolan sitting naked in the bathtub like he owned the world. And me. His chest was annoyingly well-defined, water sliding down the ridges of his abs like he'd walked out of some glossy magazine shoot. Why the hell did he have to train so seriously? I glared at his muscles, half envious, half jealous. Do you like it? Nolan asked, catching me staring, a smirk tugging at his lips. I blinked, speechless. He was shameless. I squinted at him. Was he really drunk, or was this just an elaborate ploy to show off? Suspicious, I held the shower head over his head and let the water pour, trying to cool us both down. He tilted his head and shook off the droplets like some oversized dog, the collar around his neck jingling mockingly. The bell's sound instantly reminded me of the photos. Ah, sweet revenge. Just the memory filled me with joy. I was grinning like an idiot, picturing myself blackmailing him for the rest of my life, until he suddenly stopped moving. I blinked. Then Nolan stood up. Water slid down his body, his expression unreadable, his eyes dark and sharp. Wait. No. He's not drunk? Damn. I dropped the shower head and turned to bolt. Too late. A soaked hand grabbed my wrist and yanked me back hard. I slipped and landed right in the tub with a loud splash, water flying everywhere. Have you had enough fun? He asked with a lazy smile, wrapping an arm around my waist. His other hand, cold and slightly wet, caressed my neck, fingers toying with the collar. Since you like this so much, how about wearing it every day? What? I paled. This couldn't be happening. If anyone in the elite circle saw me like this, collared, sitting on Nolan's lap, panting like his loyal pet, I'd be laughed out of every room for the rest of my life. No, absolutely not. I needed to think fast. My pride crumbled in real time. I leaned in close to Nolan's ear, lowered my voice to a whisper, and forced the words out through gritted teeth. Master, I was wrong. His hand froze. My ears burned. I would never live this down. But I survived. As an alpha, I could bend and stretch. This wasn't shameful. Not if no one else knew. Then, bam! The world flipped and Nolan pinned me down in the tub. His teeth sank into my gland again. The electric numbness spread from my neck to every nerve ending. My whole body twitched, heat rising to my face. I tried to fight it, tried to ignore the overwhelming sensation of being marked, but the humiliation of being claimed by my enemy returned full force. No! You bastard! I clawed at him in a panic, leaving bright red scratches on his neck and arms. Don't think you can humiliate me like this. I'm thick-skinned. Nolan looked down at me with a lazy, satisfied expression, brushing wet hair from my face. You're really dumb, he said. If looks could kill, my glare would have burned a hole through his smug face. I yanked on Nolan's tie and tugged it a bit tighter than necessary. If he hadn't handed me his black card this morning like some smug sugar daddy, I might have strangled him on the spot. You're seriously going to work looking like that? He gave me a curious glance in the mirror. The claw marks on his neck were still visible. Why not? I rolled my eyes. Instead of hiding it, he dragged me around his company like a prize he'd just won at a fair. He introduced me to his staff as James, said with a smirk. He'll be sticking close to me from now on. And just like that, the mighty James Wilson, the ex-young master, was now nothing but a glorified bodyguard following his sworn enemy around. I wanted to die. Worse yet, the employees stared at us with weird, knowing looks. A few whispered. Some even smiled. Wait, what the hell were they imagining? The moment I splashed cold water on my face in the washroom, trying to rid myself of thoughts I had no business thinking, a man suddenly bolted in, nearly giving me a heart attack. "Hello, Mrs. Anderson." "Mrs. What?" I almost slipped on the wet floor and cracked my skull open. He pointed at my neck with a sly smile. "Don't worry. We all know how to assert sovereignty around here. From now on, I'll be your eyes in the company. If any alpha so much as breathes too close to Mr. Nolan, I'll report them to you. Just say a few good words for me, will you? A promotion, maybe? A pay raise?" My eyes twitched. I turned toward the mirror, and there it was. Bright and bold, a bite mark on my gland. I had forgotten. Even if an alpha can't be truly marked, the physical evidence lasts a few days. That bastard Nolan must have done it on purpose. The way he smiled last night, he planned this. And then, like a switch flipping, an even more terrifying thought crashed into me like a freight train. He wouldn't actually be serious about that kind of thing, right? The guy was always surrounded by pretty little omegas. Why would he turn around and nibble on another alpha? Unless Nolan has a thing for ruining people. I've never understood the phrase walking on thin ice until now. Every time I meet his eyes, I swear my soul evacuates my body. That scene, his teeth sinking into my neck, keeps replaying. The heat, the trembling, the shame, and worst of all, the way my body reacted. I was spiraling. "Why's your face so red?" Nolan asked, leaning a little too close. "Ah, is it? Really?" I turned away and rubbed my nose. I could feel his gaze, sharp and curious, like he was dissecting me with those damn peach blossom eyes. But salvation came crashing in with stilettos. Nolan. His sister Marissa stormed into the room like a fireball. "Why did you cut off my card?" Before Nolan could answer, I disappeared faster than a fugitive. That was close. I need a distraction. A decoy. A cute little omega to dangle in front of Nolan's face. Maybe then he'll return to his regular prey and stop thinking about my neck. I was mentally scrolling through eligible little ahs when Marissa suddenly popped up again, arms crossed, eyes rebellious. "So you're the new sister-in-law, huh?" She smirked. "Well, let me tell you something. My brother's had a crush on someone since childhood." "Really?" I nearly choked on air from sheer relief. Finally. Someone else. My poor alpha bud is safe. She stared at me. "Why aren't you jealous? Shouldn't you be crying or storming into his office to make a scene?" "I'm calm. So calm. In fact, do you know who it is? I'll invite him over. Bring them together. Yes, I'll make it happen." Marissa looked at me like I was insane. "Humph." She rolled her eyes and stomped away dramatically. I was floating. Let Nolan nibble on me all he wants for fun. I can handle a little alpha-on-alpha teasing. No feelings involved, just bullying. Until, a month later, I opened a basement door looking for a fuse box and froze. The walls. They were covered in photos of me. Photos from school, from the dorms, from when I hadn't even differentiated, from years ago. My knees nearly gave out. All this time, Nolan's childhood crush was me. My breath caught in my throat. My brain short-circuited. I stood there, unable to move, unable to blink. He liked me all along? I backed out, closed the door slowly, and leaned against it, heart pounding like crazy. I need to do something about this. Fast. That night, I walked into the private room with a bright smile and a little omega clinging sweetly to my arm. I couldn't wait to show Nolan, to remind him, two alphas together. That's not how the world works. I needed to put his delusions to rest, once and for all. The room was warm, laughter buzzing in the air, the low clink of glasses echoing under the dim lights. I avoided Nolan's gaze, my throat dry, hand gripping the wine glass too tightly. I felt his eyes on me long before he called out. "Come sit over here," Nolan said, waving lazily, eyes glinting with something I didn't want to name. I stood up and turned to the omega beside me. I brushed his soft hair like I actually meant it and said gently, "Baby, wait for me for a while." He nodded shyly, and I walked straight into the trap. The moment I got close, Nolan grabbed my wrist and pulled me aside, right up against him. His breath was hot against my ear as he whispered, "Do you like this, Omega?" I forced a crooked smile, looking anywhere but at him. Yes. His hand slid to my chin, gripping it hard. "Very good," he said, his tone turning cold, dangerous. "But don't forget, you're my dog now." I froze. I wanted to retort, to say something scathing, but I held his gaze instead. "Nolan, I like omegas." He stilled, eyes narrowing. A beat passed. Then he chuckled, slow and low. "So," he said, "you found that room." His voice was soft but sharp enough to cut. "I was wondering what suddenly gave you this stupid idea." I didn't answer. The smile vanished from his face. In the next second, his hand gripped my collar and dragged me out of the room. The laughter behind us died immediately. No one dared breathe. He shoved me into the back seat of the car and slammed the door shut. Silence, no words exchanged. But his scent, his fury, wrapped around me like smoke. I thought he understood. That I wasn't trying to provoke him. That I just wanted to give him an easy way out of this insanity. But maybe I'd underestimated him. Back at his place, I took a long shower. I needed the heat to calm the rising panic under my skin. When I stepped out, towel hanging loosely around my waist, he was sitting at the edge of the bed, head low, face shadowed. I knew what he wanted. He only called me over at night when he wanted to mark me, and by now I was used to it. His teeth, his scent, the tingling pain followed by the heat that left me breathless. I told myself it didn't matter. I was still alpha. He was just venting. I didn't feel anything. So I knelt at his feet like usual, resting my head on his thigh, exposing my gland willingly. A silent offering. But tonight was different. He didn't bend down gently. He pulled me up and shoved me onto the bed. From behind. Then he bit down. Harder than ever. So deep, I couldn't stop the tremor that ran through my whole body. My fingers clawed at the sheets. My breathing faltered. When he finally pulled away, blood thrumming in my ears, he leaned down and licked the wound. His voice slithered into my ear, low and steady. "Do you know why I didn't lock that room?" I blinked, brain fogged by the sudden flood of unfamiliar pheromones. I couldn't speak. Couldn't think. "I'm tired of stealing your omegas," he whispered. "So I thought." His tongue traced the mark again. "How about stealing something else today?" My breath hitched. My body went still. The scent of omega inducer clung thickly to the air, weaving its way through my veins like wildfire. My skin burned, my breath caught, and my head spun with an aching heat I couldn't shake. Nolan's scent. It was coming from him. He had used it. That crazy bastard had actually used omega inducer on himself. 2 alphas in a room flooded with this stuff? Was he insane? My body felt like it was on fire. Muscles tense, skin hypersensitive. Every inch of me craved something. Someone. I stumbled from the bed, panic rising in my throat. My heart pounded hard against my ribs, trying to beat back the unbearable wave of instinct crashing down on me. I had to get out, but the door was locked. I turned and met Nolan's gaze. He stood there, back against the frame, arms crossed casually like this was all part of his grand plan. His pupils were blown wide, his jaw clenched with restraint, or maybe not enough of it. I took a step back, but my knees weakened. "Nolan," I rasped, my voice already starting to tremble. You know this is dangerous, right? This isn't funny anymore." He didn't speak, just watched me, unmoving, unblinking. The worst part was, his pheromones smelled so good. That rich, dark scent, it tugged at my mind like a hook, dragging me toward him. I felt pathetic, helpless. I should have been angry, should have fought him off, but instead, I moved forward like a moth toward the flame, needing that comfort, that presence. I pressed my face against his chest, breathing him in. "Baby," I murmured again and again. "Baby." He trembled, just slightly. Then he tipped my chin up with a slow, almost reverent touch. His eyes were red, glowing with a storm of possessive hunger, and yet that familiar smile curled at the edge of his lips. "Is that what you call those little omegas you bring around?" he asked, voice too soft to be harmless. I didn't answer. Couldn't. I wasn't even in the right headspace anymore. I just needed him. That night blurred into 7. The susceptible period didn't give either of us rest. Not truly. Between sweat-drenched sheets, angry kisses, and tangled limbs, something shifted. At first, I told myself it was just instinct, just pheromones, just survival. But it wasn't. By the time it ended, I lay on my back, too sore to move, staring at the ceiling as my thoughts slowly began to return. My skin was flushed. My throat was dry. And Nolan... That bastard walked out of the shower looking like the devil himself had just claimed victory. He approached with that usual grace of his, leaned in, and pressed a kiss to my lips like we hadn't just lost our minds for 7 days straight. "Morning, baby," he whispered. "This is the happiest period of vulnerability I've ever experienced." I didn't respond. I was too busy processing what had just happened. That wall of denial I'd built? Cracked. Nolan didn't just want to mess with me. He didn't want revenge or control or a petty alpha dominance game. He wanted me. Obsessed, twisted, unrelenting. He had been watching me for years, taking pictures before I even differentiated, biting my gland night after night like it was the only way to prove he owned me. And damn it, I let him. I licked my lips and tasted him there, still lingering. I actually hooked up with my archenemy, I muttered to no one. The bar was dim and noisy, the bass of the music echoing somewhere in my ribs. I didn't even know why I came here. But the conflicting thoughts in my head wouldn't shut up. Why me? Why has it always been me? I remembered being 16, finding out that Nolan had snatched yet another Omega from under my nose. At the time, I thought it was pure competition, another round in the endless battle between us. But now, was it because he couldn't stand seeing me with someone else? I stared into my drink, lost in thought, when someone nudged my arm. "Hey, handsome guy, why are you sad?" I turned to look. An Omega. Pretty. Soft eyes. The kind of person who would have easily caught my attention before. But tonight, I just saw them and thought, not Nolan. They smiled, tilting their head in a cute way, but I didn't reply. I couldn't even smile back. My brain was busy playing a highlight reel of Nolan's stupid smirks and the way he kissed my neck before falling asleep beside me. The Omega pouted and left, muttering something about alphas being cold. My phone buzzed. Nolan. I hesitated, then picked up. "Hello. Where are you?" His voice was low, calm, too calm. Bar. A pause. Then, another voice in the background. Flirty, sweet. "Hey, handsome, are you alone?" Nolan went silent. I barely had time to speak when I heard his sharp inhale. "Are you looking for an Omega outside?" "No," I started, but the line went dead. I cursed under my breath. Half an hour later, the bar door slammed open. A gust of wind and fury swept through as Nolan walked in like a storm. His eyes locked onto me instantly. He didn't speak, just marched over, grabbed me by the wrist, and pulled me to my feet. The few people around us stared. I didn't resist. "What are you doing?" I asked quietly as we walked out. He didn't look at me, taking back what's mine. And for some reason, I didn't stop him. I was drunk when Nolan dragged me out of the bar, and thank God for that. I couldn't handle another episode like last time. I didn't remember much about the ride, just that Nolan didn't say a word, his grip on my wrist firm, protective, possessive. He brought me to his place. I collapsed on the couch and drifted off almost immediately, grateful for the alcohol dulling the storm in my chest. But in the middle of the night, I stirred. Groggy and half asleep, I shifted to get up and use the bathroom. My legs felt oddly heavy, and when I blinked my eyes open, I froze. Nolan was crouched at the foot of the couch, holding my ankle like a priceless artifact. His head was bowed, and he was pressing a slow, almost reverent kiss to the tiny mole on the back of my foot. My breath caught. I didn't know what to say. My mind just shut down. That wasn't obsession. That was love. Real, terrifying, obsessive love. It got worse the day I accidentally caught Nolan at a workshop downtown. I wasn't even supposed to be there. I'd come to pick up a custom-designed ring I'd commissioned for a friend, but I stopped cold when I saw Nolan leaning over a glass display, calmly customizing a set of chains. Metal, heavy-duty, engraved. I didn't stay long enough to hear the details. I just ran. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would explode. He was dangerous, intense. He was an alpha. And I was James, the man who'd only ever dated sweet-tempered, gentle Omegas. That was my type, my preference, my comfort zone. So why the hell did I keep thinking about him? I tried avoiding him after that. I spent the evening wandering aimlessly along the roadside. My coat was too thin for the cold, but I welcomed the bite of the wind. It numbed the war in my head. I let out a frustrated sigh. If only Nolan were an Omega. I stopped walking. That thought came out of nowhere, and it horrified me. I was spiraling, losing it. I was about to turn back when a cry for help suddenly echoed from an alley ahead. I rushed toward the sound, heart pounding, but all I found was a cell phone lying in the corner. The voice continued, still crying for help. From the phone, my gut twisted. Something's wrong. Before I could react, a shadow moved beside me. Everything went dark. When I came to, I was in a pitch-black room. My hands and feet were bound, my body aching from being slung around like a rag doll. A man stood in the doorway, arms crossed, face hidden in the dim glow of a single bulb. "I assume you're James Wilson?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "Your father owes us money. 10 million. You'll help us find him." My mouth went dry. I haven't heard from him in a month. He didn't believe me. If we don't get the money tonight, you're not making it to sunrise. My mind spun. Fear clawed at my spine, but I forced myself to think. Wait, I said quickly. He doesn't contact me directly. He always uses a third party. I can call that person. He can get the money. The man narrowed his eyes. You trying something? No. No tricks. Just let me make the call. After a pause, he handed me a phone. I dialed. The moment Nolan's voice came through, I nearly broke. James? Where are you? What's going? I cut him off quickly. Nolan, please tell my father I need urgent money. 10 million. A beat of silence. Then, James, what's happening? I handed the phone back before I could fall apart. The kidnapper took it. Tell Wilson to bring 10 million by midnight, or his precious son's corpse will be delivered instead. Nolan said just one word. Okay. They tied me up again after that and left me in the darkness. My heart raced, and I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. But even in the crushing silence, one thing gave me hope. Nolan will come. The man angrily kicked the door open and grabbed my collar. Why is there only 5 million? Where is the remaining 5 million? I saw the dagger approaching my neck, and the next moment, Nolan called. What does he mean? Does he still want his son's life? I didn't know how they communicated. But in the end, the man tied my hands again and said fiercely, if your father doesn't transfer the remaining 5 million by 7 tomorrow morning, I'll send you to hell. He slammed the door shut and left. I was tied up in a corner, unable to move. The night grew darker and darker. I didn't dare fall asleep, but I still dozed off for a while. Then I heard a rustling sound. As soon as I opened my eyes, a hand covered my mouth. A familiar voice whispered near my ear, Don't worry, the police are outside. I saw Nolan alone, and my heart began pounding. It's so dangerous. Why did you come up here alone? Soon there was chaos outside. Quick! Nolan grabbed my hand and led me toward the window. Just then, the man kicked the door open and saw us trying to escape. He rushed toward us with a knife, eyes filled with fury. Nolan pulled me behind him and blocked me with his body. Be careful! Nolan kicked the dagger out of the man's hand. We tried to run again, but I lost my balance and twisted my foot. I heard a sharp crack and fell flat on my face. Pain shot through me. My ankle had swollen instantly. When my mother found out I was in the hospital, she rushed over overnight. Where are you hurt? Let me see. I wolfed down my midnight snack, lifted my ankle, and said, It's okay, I just twisted it. It's okay, Auntie. I'll take care of him. It's so late. You can go back and rest, Nolan said. My mother nodded in agreement without hesitation. Okay. I was stunned. Is this really my biological mother? She patted my shoulder and said earnestly, Whether you like alphas or omegas, I support you. Don't worry, just love freely. What? No, Mom. When did you even find out I like alphas? After the incident at the abandoned building, word spread that Nolan had spent a fortune on me. Now, he could no longer hide his feelings. That night, Nolan took me home and took care of me the whole time until my foot completely healed. The next day, after I recovered, I opened my eyes and found myself chained to the bed. Damn, what's going on? Nolan saw I was awake and came over to kiss my face, both gentle and possessive. This time, I won't let you escape from me. My brain worked fast, and I played along. Who said I was leaving? You're handsome and rich. I can't hold you tight enough. Not to mention, you're my biggest creditor now. Nolan was in a good mood tonight and had quite a bit of wine. He kept staring at me from time to time. It got even worse when we got in the car. His eyes were practically glued to me, like he wanted to stick to me. My mortal enemy, the one who always stole my omegas. Why has he become like this? When I looked up, I saw Nolan watching me with a barely perceptible smile in his eyes. I was stunned. Why hadn't I realized how alluring Nolan's smile was before? Kiss, Nolan suddenly said, looking at me without blinking. I suspected he was drunk again. Otherwise, why would he look at me with such a pitiful expression? Wasn't this supposed to be forced love? Why the sudden shift to pure affection? I cleared my throat, blushed, and quickly looked away. You're drunk. There was no response for a long time. When I looked over, Nolan was hanging his head in disappointment. I sighed. What a mess. I cupped his face and gave him a quick peck. As an alpha, I can bend and stretch. It's just a kiss. Nolan's eyes lit up instantly. He suddenly caught me and deepened the kiss. Oh my God. I was kissed into oblivion. Back at the villa, he held my hand and led me into the basement. Leaning close to my ear, he whispered excitedly, "James, I've liked you since I was 16. As he spoke, he grabbed my hand and placed it on the gland at the back of his neck. My heart pounded so hard I almost ran away. I ran to find my mother in the middle of the night. "Mom, I think I'm in love with an alpha." I was so upset. I just needed someone to talk to. She blinked, clearly caught off guard. "Huh? Aren't you already engaged to Nolan?" I froze. That was the moment I realized I was in real trouble. I tossed and turned until midnight, then quietly slipped back home and collapsed onto my bed, hoping sleep would make everything clearer. It didn't. When I opened my eyes the next morning, I was chained to the bed again. Nolan sat calmly at the headboard, eyes dim and unreadable. "Didn't you run off last night?" he asked. "Why are you back? Having second thoughts about leaving the money behind?" I stared at him. "Did you check the surveillance cameras?" "How else would I know you went out?" he replied darkly. "I won't let you leave me, James. Seems like I'll have to teach you a lesson, again." I opened my mouth to explain. "No, you've got it all wrong. I wasn't running away. I just went to tell my mom I might be starting a relationship with an alpha." But then I glanced down at the chains. I've never tried this kind of play before. Maybe I'll indulge him for a bit. Big mistake. 7 days later, I was full of regret. I cried and struggled to crawl out of bed, but Nolan caught me and dragged me back, pressing me down onto a bed of roses like a beast in heat. I flipped us over and straddled him. His pheromones hit me hard, flooding my senses. My lips brushed his neck as I bit down again and again, blood mixed with desperation. "What do you mean I don't want to?" I growled. "If you're so sure of me, then why don't you confess?" Nolan froze, stunned. Then a brilliant light filled his eyes. "What did you just say?" I said, "Do you want to try dating?" I muttered. "I've never been with an alpha before, but lucky you. And while we're at it, fine, keep your metal chains if they make you happy, but no handcuffing me every day. I'm only tolerating this because of your black card." His mouth crushed into mine before I could finish. "James," he whispered between kisses, "I've always liked you." I pushed him off and scrambled out of bed. From the drawer, I pulled out the ring I'd bought in a panic that night and slid it onto his finger. Then we clasped hands and snapped a photo, posting it straight to social media. If I don't flaunt my husband, the whole circle will think I was dumped by a rich family. This alpha may have no shame, but I've got a reputation to protect.